Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Friday morning, political fighters. Welcome to the August 7th, 2026 edition of Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, YouTube. Of course, you guys know that we broadcast on WARR in North Carolina and KTNF up in Minnesota. You can email me at richard@WCPT820.com and follow me on all the socials under Choose Views. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music, as well as iHeartRadio. There you can get Choose Views featured interviews. Joe Esposito, live, local, and progressive, driving it home with Patty Vasquez. It's the Democracy Stupid with Edwin Eisendrath and Out Chicago, as well as our other great shows and interviews. And if you're trying to figure out something to do in the evening and you want to be informed, check out the Politics Bar, Matt McNeil's show, and the Gailey Show, because that's where you can grab more and more information. We just keep it coming, guys. Keep it going. So you're constantly informed. You're like, stop. No, got to keep you informed. That's what we got to do. Over at heartlandsignal.com, lots of great articles and posts that we have there. And everything that's going on here in the Midwest, here in the Heartland, of what's happening over in Michigan with some of the comments from Dr. Abdul El-Sayed and some of the comments around the Farm Fest that we talked about with Representative Angie Craig. So lots of good stuff that's happening at heartlandsignal.com. A couple of comments from the governor's race and the different candidates that are running for governor in Minnesota. So make your way over there. Like and share whatever you see and whatever you think is something that someone in your world can benefit from. So that's the plan. Wow. On today's show, we have a power-packed lineup. In the 6:30 hour, Crystal Spain will be with us. She's a chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party, and we'll be chatting with her at 6:30. Karen Byrne, our friend from True Blue Politics Podcast, will be with us in the 7 o'clock hour, helping me hold it down as we talk with Dr. Young Mi Kim, who is a VLAS Distinguished Achievement Professor, where at the University of Wisconsin at Madison. He's a professor in journalism and mass communication, and we're going to talk a little bit about voting and some of the trickery that's going on, ironically, when it comes to voter suppression. So she will be with us in the 7 o'clock hour. And then it is Friday, first Friday of the month. Mayor Brandon Johnson will be hanging out with us in the 7:30 hour, and we'll get to chat with him about things that are going on in Chicago, in the region, the state, all the rest. So looking forward to having our guest with us this morning. Should be fun. So that's what's happening on today's show. So as I say, get your notebooks out. Be ready to chat with us. If you have some questions, you can text them to me. I'll try to get them asked of Crystal Spain, as well as Professor Kim and Mayor Johnson. So send us your questions. You can obviously go to our Facebook page and drop a few thoughts there as well. And we'll do our best to get them on. We will try very, very hard. Yesterday's question of the day, we're going to have a little bit of a repeat, because then this will make sense when I get to the to my segment on something to chew on. But I asked a question yesterday, and I still want to get some more comments from you guys on if you were the one of the people that was part of Dr. Syed's campaign team, what would be some suggestions that you would tell him to consider about how to beat Mike Rogers in the general election in the state and the U.S. Senate race in Michigan? So I want to touch on that again, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit when we come back from this first break with my segment on something to chew on, because that race is important, guys. I know we can't overemphasize how much of an opportunity that it is. I mean, we have to hold that seat. That's not a seat that we're getting, that we're taking from, as in what would be the case in Texas or the case in in Maine. This is a Senate seat we have to hold on to. So that's why it's so important. And when I don't want anybody to think, oh, Richard's just leaning way into this. I am. Yes. I'm doing what we talk about in terms of staying focused on the thing we got to get done. So helping Dr. Syed win is important. I'd like to know what you guys think about what, if you were in the position of one of his campaign people, part of his campaign, what would be some suggestions that you would tell him about how to beat Mike Rogers in the general Senate election? We got less than 90 days until that happens. So we want to make sure we do everything we can to win that seat, to hold on to that seat. I'm working hard to get Dr. Syed back on the show. He was with us back in April, and talking with his people about doing that again soon. So we'll keep you posted on that in that space. Okay. The Democrats are not at fault for taking things away from Republicans. And sometimes I say that, or when I say that, sometimes I wonder what you guys think about it. Most of you know this. And every now and again, we have to do the thing that a good team does, and that's figure out how we're going to fix the weak spots, or strengthen the strengths, and make sure that the areas where we have some shortcomings, we do a better job in strengthening those areas too. I'm not afraid to criticize our team, because I think when we do it from the perspective of it making us better, then we're really getting something done. Or as my father would say, you're really saying something now. So we get to, critique our team for the purposes of strengthening our team. But I'm telling you, it's the other side. It's the Republicans that are causing the harm to the country at large. And certainly they're doing things to harm the Democratic voters and, folks in the country. But they're also hurting their own people. And if you don't believe me, I don't know if you guys caught this. It may have slipped under the radar, which is what they try to do. And those in the corporate media that want to just talk about if the Dems are in disarray, they aren't going to talk about this. I don't think you're going to hear much about this, but I'm going to talk about it. The Republicans vote down the Farm Bill amendment enabling lawsuits against pesticide companies. Imagine that. They voted Thursday to vote down an amendment that was sought to open up the American farmers' particularly ability to sue pesticide companies over health impacts of their products. Now, this isn't what's crazy about this is the Republicans always talk about they're concerned about the American people. And we are the ones that are going to take care of the everyday working person and make sure that we're the ones that are right for you, and we're going to take care of you as an American, and we're going to make sure that your patriotic love for this country is upheld. Really? Then why in the hell would you vote down a bill to farmers, particularly? And let's be honest, we know that there are farmers of all communities, cultural communities, but the sort of the idea, the presentation, the visual of what an American farmer is doesn't look like me. Okay. Stereotypical as it is, I happen to know that there are a large number of African-American, Hispanic, Latino, Mexican, Asian farmers in this country. But that being said, when you look at the images that represent American farmers and the heartland, that representation is shown to be white folks. That's just the way that it is. And that's wrong, but that's what's presented. But the Republican Party, they voted down the Farm Bill amendment that would enable folks who have been affected by pesticides and companies that produce them to actually have a say in this. And it was a party line vote. So what that means is every single Republican voted against it. So none of them, if you live in a metropolitan area as a Republican senator, or if you represent a more rural community, you all said that the farmers who you talk about you're going to save and do all these great things for, you lied. The Democrats lined up to help the farmers. And see, this is where when I hear people that talk about what the Democrats aren't doing, well, they stood in line to represent the farm community while the Republicans threw them under the tractor. That's what happened, y'all. The Republicans threw them under the tractor, and it's about their health, nonetheless. So the next time you want to say the Democrats aren't doing anything, look at some of the bills that get passed that sneak under the radar and that the corporate media is not going to cover because they know it will talk about how trashy the Republican senators are on a federal level. So there you go. Let's take a quick break, guys. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Chew's Views. All right, guys, welcome back to the show, Chew's Views. If you're just tuning in, thank you for being with us on this Friday morning. And we're going to bring you a couple of quick Chew's Views news items on this August 7th, 2026. The NASDAQ cooled off this week after a 4-day romp, $3.5 trillion rebound. It calmed down a little bit Wednesday, Thursday. For those of you who care, the tech benchmark also welcomed SpaceX into the fold this week as part of its new fast-track plan for high-interest IPOs. CVS caps the successful quarter with new weight management program guidelines. This week, they nearly are tripling their quarter profit since last year. The health giant now expects revenue of at least $414 billion. CVS also announced a collaboration with drug maker Eli Lilly meant to expand direct-to-consumer access for GLP-1s, per their interim chief of the pharmacy division. Private hiring missed some of its expectations for job growth. Private firms saw 44,000 jobs, I should say, added last month, down from 95,000 in June, below the projected 75,000, I should say. Employees who stayed in their jobs saw the average annual pay gains of 4.4%, while job switchers enjoyed an increase of 7%. Payroll firms reporting comes 2 days ahead of the closely watched July employment report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The cyclospora outbreak widens to now include 15 states. Food distribution giant Sysco has stopped buying iceberg lettuce from Mexico as the largest cyclospora outbreak on record widens to 15 states, the Washington Post reports. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention added 6 states to its count, including Missouri, which alone reported over 1,000 cases, according to the state health department spokesperson. Federal investigators also continue to investigate illnesses in another 24 states that may not have been connected to the main outbreak. And last but not least, if you're a Burger King or McDonald's fan, Burger King kind of left McDonald's in the dust. The chain helped drive the parent company Restaurant Brands International to its earnings success for the second quarter, as its United States stores sales surged more than 8%. That's 10 times those of their rival McDonald's. Burger King, which has struggled not too long ago, has benefited from restaurant makeovers, grabby marketing, and a focus on core menu items, according to Bloomberg. So there you go. McDonald's is making their way, but Burger King is making their way a little bit better. So keeping you posted on a couple of items that are out there in our Chew's Views news universe. Today on Live, local and progressive Joan Esposito will be taking your calls and then talking to Melissa Tufeyan, former State Department Deputy Assistant Secretary who served on the communications team for the original Iran nuclear deal under President Obama. She now serves as Managing Director at Navigator Research. Chris Fitzsimon, I should say, not Fitzsimmons. It's always got to get that one right. Chris Fitzsimon, host of the State's Newsroom Stories, for the State's podcast, and former Illinois Governor Pat Quinn will be joining Joan Esposito today on Live, Local, and Progressive 2 to 5 here on WCPT, heartlandsignal.com, and tune in. And then tonight for our listeners on WCPT, driving it home, Patty Vasquez will be broadcasting live from the McHenry County Fair. We told you it was going to happen, and her guests include Dee Darling, candidate for McHenry County Board District 1, Natalie Ziemba, member of the Woodstock City Council, and Bridget Belcastro, candidate for McHenry County School Board. Driving it home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays 5 to 7 here on WCPT, Heartland Signal website, TuneIn, and YouTube. And, of course, tomorrow is Saturday, so on WCPT, it's the Democracy Stupid with Edwin Eisendrath. He'll be joined by Ahmed Baba, independent journalist and political analyst and founder of the best-selling Substack publication, Ahmed Baba News. Rachel Cohen, Chicago-based attorney and organizer. Tim Murphy, the national correspondent at Mother Jones. He'll talk about his recent article, Down Ballot Democrats Are Smashing Recruitment Records. And Pat Kreitlow will also be joining the show, founder and editor of Up North News. It's the Democracy Stupid, Saturdays 1 to 4 here on WCPT. That is Edwin's show, and we love it. Then on Sunday, we'll keep it going from 11 until 1. WCPT Scott Duff and Ellen Miller invite you to spend Sunday brunch with your best gay friends or your gay best friends, however you want to read it. Each week on Out Chicago, they tackle today's headlines from a queer perspective and focus on the accomplishments and the vibrant LGBTQ community in Chicago and across the globe. Out Chicago is Chicago's only live broadcast for the LGBTQ community. And trust me, guys, it is a great show. You want to tune in. So that's what's happening with my colleagues. I can legitimately say colleagues because they are, rather than the ones that, are across the aisle politically. So just poking a little bit of fun. All right. Today's segment, something to chew on. I said earlier that I was going to talk a little bit about Dr. Syed's race in Michigan. And I am going to be a voice around that as much as I possibly can, because not only do I want us to win this seat, we need to win this seat because it's one that we have to hold on to. And when the phrase that the Senate, winning the Senate goes through Michigan is used, that's not an over-exaggeration or an overstatement. So my question of the day was, what would you suggest to Dr. Syed in terms of helping him beat Mike Rogers? And here are a couple of things that I think is a broad thing in Michigan that I think he can benefit from. One is to close the voter gap. Consider some of the strategies that are out there that have been used successfully to appeal to independent voters. I think sometimes independent voters get too much credit and they carry too much weight, right? I think so, because make a decision. How difficult is it to see if you're an independent voter and you voted for Donald Trump in this last cycle, what were you paying attention to? Okay. So, but that's one of the things that he is going to have to do, meaning Dr. Syed in Michigan, is close that voter gap by appealing to independent voters, because they are going to shape that election in a major way. Work to reunify the party, because obviously there's some fractures that took place because we had a very contentious primary between three great candidates, Mallory McMorrow, Congresswoman Haley Stevens, and Dr. Syed. So reunifying the party is going to be important. And I think he gets that. And I think part of the reunification that has to happen is that the other folks have got to put their armor down and say, okay, beating Mike Rogers, if you all weren't talking, just bumping your gums about that, and you mean it, then that means you got to put your armor down and say, I'm all in with Dr. Syed. And that includes Governor Whitmer. And I think she stepped to the mic on this recently, as of yesterday. So all the Democratic voices in Michigan, y'all got to help reunify the party as well. It's not just on Dr. Syed. You all have a stake in it, and you have a responsibility to the voters, if what you say is what you actually believe. And the other thing I would suggest to him is make sure that the identity politics that is going to take place, and I'm using fancy words to say the racism and the cultural dynamics, they're going to take place. They're going to come after him already. They have with regard to his faith. They're going to come after him about being Muslim. They're going to come after him about being brown skinned, all that, all those memes and tropes and all that garbage is going to happen. But when it, and I know he can handle it, but when it starts to happen to people that are around him and part of the voting blocks of people in Michigan. So in other words, if the money that's coming from outside of the state starts to go after the Muslim community, then we got to step to that. You can go after him, and I'm sure he's well equipped. The dude can bench 250, so I'm sure he's well equipped and strong enough to deal with that. But when they start going after the Muslim community at large, that's when the Democratic Party in Michigan will have to step up and say, no, you don't get to go after cultural. You don't get to go after communities of culture. Stay away from that. But because they're going to do it. The Republicans are going to do that. They're going to say that the Muslim community is bad and they're coming after you. And in some cases, they're already starting to do that. So Dr. Syed's opportunity to bring the party together is also one that allows him to bring the state together. The other thing he has to do, and I'm sure he will, he's already been talking about it, and we have to help him in this space, is we have to make sure that the words rubber stamp come out of his mouth often in talking about Mike Rogers and how he will just be a rubber stamp for Donald Trump. And tie everything. This is one of those rare opportunities where we have the ability to tie someone directly to Donald Trump time and time and time again. Every opportunity that he has, he needs to be able to do that. I know he's willing to do it. Is to tie Mike Rogers to Donald Trump. They need to be basically sitting in the same sidecar together. That's how people have to perceive. Everything that Trump has done to harm the country, that's harmed the state, Mike Rogers is going to do the same thing if he becomes senator. That's some framing, and I know that they'll make it a hell of a lot better than I just did, but that's hopefully will be part of the conversation. If you wonder why gas prices are up, look to Mike Rogers and Donald Trump. If you wonder why groceries are up, look to Mike Rogers and Donald Trump. Just keep tying them together. That's how I see it. Play hardball. Because we got one shot. I mean, even have Eminem come in and campaign with them. And it's I don't know where that just, like, my brain just let that one slip in, guys. But, you know, get Eminem to campaign with you. We got one shot. All right. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more Chew's Views. Guys, welcome back to Chew's Views. If you're just tuning in, thanks for being with us. I'm Richard Chew, of course. And, you know, people can say what they want to about our Democratic Party, but we have the leadership across the board. And our state Democratic Party chairs have really stepped up since 2024's general election. And we're seeing it, guys, because of the wins that we've had in some of the special and off-year elections. With us this morning is another voice that is making sure that people's voices are heard and leading with the kind of championship leadership that we all want to have, and that is Crystal Spain, who is the chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party. Good morning, Ms. Crystal, and welcome to Chew's Views.
Good morning. Thank you so much. How's the weather out in Chicago?
It's warm, but it's not as crazy as it is in South Carolina right now. We know how
of course not.
But no, we here's the thing about Chicago. People that haven't been here ever or have been here for, rarely, when they come to Chicago, in the spring and summer, they're like, oh my goodness, your weather, Chicago's beautiful and wonderful and gorgeous. And then suddenly they'll come back another time and they'll come mid-July and it's 95 degrees and 98% humidity. And like, oh my God, I thought I just left this stuff.
Oh, that's news to me. I'm glad you warned me.
Yeah.
Good to know.
You roll into Chicago in July, and you're like, wait, and let's just say you came from, the South or the Southeast, and you're like, wait a minute, did my plane turn around and go back to where I just came from?
Okay, what a disappointment. No reprieve.
I was gonna get a 20-degree break, but no, it's the same. I have family in the South and the Southeast, and frankly all over the country. But I have family that have come to Chicago, and they've been like, wow, I forgot how hot it gets here.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so there you go.
That is so good to know.
That's right. Well, it's hot right now all over the country politically. And there's folks like you, Ms. Spain, that have really, really said it might be hot, but we're going to get out here and do what we got to do. And politically, we're going to make sure that we're reshaping the way that this country is perceiving itself. We aren't going to allow some of this garbage and carnage that's taking place, frankly, unapologetically from the GOP, to be who we really are. Talk a little bit about the work that you're doing. You got a tremendous number of great candidates and a lot of work that you're doing in terms of some of the state leadership. Give us an update.
I became chair in 2023, and I just made a point not to try to go backwards. I think that it's been a passing of the torch. Successfully or not, or unsuccessfully, the chairs before me had worked really hard to try to build something that is sustainable. But what I did was just make sure that we were including everybody. Number one, and number two, like try to get rid of the division and put a plan in place so that we can try to build the infrastructure that we need to win, to start winning. And that's what we did, right? And so the goal was to map out where we made mistakes or where we made decisions that we could have made better decisions. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that we did was try to figure out how we organize everywhere. And that's what we've been doing. And because we've been in the early state window, we always get some national attention. Mm-hmm. And so with that national attention, when folks like Governor Newsom want to come to South Carolina or Senator Cory Booker want to come to South Carolina, we decided to take them to our most rural, most red counties, where Democrats there felt, forgotten. We took Governor Newsom to the home of Lindsey Graham, the late Lindsey Graham now, on his birthday. It doesn't get any redder than that. And the Republicans there are rabid. And the Democrats there were excited. And so that's just what we've done for the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. And this year we were able to recruit candidates for every race, Democratic candidates, no independents, just Democrats all across our ballot. We've got 124 state house seats, and every last one of them has a Democrat running in November. There's not one Republican in South Carolina running unchecked.
And
we got all of our constitutional. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. That is so refreshing to hear. I'm sorry, ma'am. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we've got all our constitutional offices filled, from governor all the way down to commissioner of agriculture, with really good candidates, with serious folks who understand the office they're running for. And, of course, we've got this competitive U.S. Senate race, which I think now has gotten a little bit more competitive since the untimely death of Lindsey Graham. So, we've got tremendous opportunities in the South, and it starts from organizing everywhere. Even in the places where, you feel like you can't win, you have to show signs of life, signs of fight, and that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, because left unattended, the weeds will grow. There's all kinds of parables and statements that we can make about it. If you clear out the house with one thing and you don't fill it with something good, something bad will show up there, and that's what's
perfect. Yes,
unfortunately has happened in too many places for us as Democrats. I like what you said, Ms. Spain, a moment ago about not independents but Democrats. Let us both be clear. We have nothing against independents who are running for office, but don't run. But don't run to then represent yourself as a Democrat. If you're going to run as an independent, run as an independent, but don't try to sneak in the back door and say, "But we want to be part of your team." And I think the reason that's got to be made more clear now is it's drawing a line in the sand. And yeah, we have two parties, so pick one. And that's why I've been saying for such a long time, independents there's a place for that, but not when you're trying to run through the other parties, and it typically is through the Democratic Party's system. And it sounds like you've kind of made the decision that you got to pick a squad.
Yeah, because we have a Republican trifecta in South Carolina. They've got the governor's office, all the constitutional offices, the Senate, the House. They just have a trifecta, and we can break the Republican supermajority. So when we do that in November, we need everybody on the same team, singing from the same hymn book, so that we can help continue to move the needle. Right? Like, it's not going to, to put us in the majority, but we can start stopping bad legislation if we're all on the same page. So, we can really get on defense if we don't get on offense.
Yeah, that's a great way to hear. Great way to hear that. Your counterpart or your colleague, Anderson Clayton in North Carolina, she's taking the same stance and making it clear. We're the Democratic Party. If you want to be part of us, then you got to play by the rules that we've set forth. So it's nice to see that you guys are drawing a line in the sand in that space. And I think that we need to do more of that throughout the country, is to get people to be excited about being part of the Democratic Party, whether they're running or they call themselves an independent voter. Pick a side.
Yeah.
Because typically our ideas, and I've been saying this for months now, our ideas are better than theirs. And just look at this recent farm bill. You probably are aware of it. If you're not, the Republicans vote down and Republican senators vote down the Farm Bill amendment that would have enabled lawsuits against pesticide companies. By party line, Republicans in the Senate, they voted against something that would help farmers have a place at the table about something that's harming them. Democrats aren't doing that. We're saying no. We want the farmers to be able to litigate against something that has been harmful to them. So it's good to hear you say we're drawing a line in the sand. Let me ask you this question about that. You talked about having, every office or every candidate for office be filled. You've got some great names. I mean, we've had Dr. Annie Andrews on my show, and it's been such a blessing to talk to her. She's the person that's running for that Senate seat. I won't say against Lindsey Graham, but now against his sister. And she has definitely shown up and made it clear that she brings a different perspective to the conversation, and one from a doctor's perspective as a pediatrician. You got Jermaine Johnson running for governor. You got Sylvia Wright? Sylvia Wright, is that correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, running for superintendent of education.
Yeah, and just a great list of candidates in different districts. Obviously, the name that everybody's familiar with in South Carolina is Jim Clyburn, but Nancy LaCour, Eunice Lehmacher, is that? Lehmacher, okay.
Yeah, Lehmacher.
Courtney McCain and Mallory Dittmer, is that right? Did I get them?
Yeah, Dittmer. Yeah, and we've got a candidate over in the 7th congressional district, John Vincent Gregory, and he is running for Congress. And the interesting thing about that, the incumbent member is now running for U.S. Senate for that open seat.
Oh.
And so that district is looking a lot better because, of course, folks don't like that. Constituents don't like that. Oh, now you don't want this job, you want another job. So it's
or trying to hold one and run for one at the same time.
Exactly, yeah. So John Gregory Vincent is doing a really good job over there, too, as well. So, the landscape here is, it's right for some change. And I think the voters absolutely want some change. And we've positioned ourselves to be successful with having all these candidates.
What is the thing that when you, as a party chair, talk to people, and I know you've got some great folks that you've been able to work with or learn from different things, from Bernie Sanders to Jamie Harrison and so many other folks. But when you talk to voters, when you are out there making and having those conversations, what are they telling you, Ms. Spain? What are those couple, 3 things that they're saying? Y'all got to get this done as Democratic leaders.
Oh, one of the 3 things, number one, I think, is what we're doing, right? And I think that's one of the charges from our DNC chair, Kim Martin, is organize everywhere, right? Leave no seat unturned. And with those investments that we've got nationally, since Ken has been the DNC chair, we have been able to win. Right, we have been able to win like we have it. Like the tent is open, as we talked about, like having independents and anybody else who wants to come in. You're welcome to join our team. yeah, our party is not perfect, but you are welcome to come inside the tent and let's fight together. And so we've left the door open. We've been organizing everywhere and just trying to bring investors to the table, showing folks with the resources that want to share their resources that Democrats can win in the Deep South.
Yeah.
Like, if Democrats are going to take back this country, they've got to win in the Deep South. And so we've been doing those two things to try to demonstrate that we can do that. But we've got to have we've got to be fully funded in doing that. So I guess that kind of answers your question.
No,
that's what we've been trying to do, so we can set the stage to show that there are Democrats here and we can win. We can turn the tide.
Yeah, and it's not easier than one thinks, but it is a pretty simple task. Talking about what the voters want, be ready to deliver on it, and make, I think, the argument that look at what Republicans have repeatedly done to harm you, not to help you. And I think that's important. Got to be an important part of the conversation. Ms. Spain, we're going to take a little bit of a break. When we come back, I want to talk about some things that are going on in the state, a little bit more about your background and the work that you've been doing. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Chew's Views. All right, guys, welcome back to Chew's Views. If you were just tuning in, I'm Richard Chew. We are talking with the first black woman to chair the South Carolina Democratic Party, Crystal Spain. Thank you so much for being with us this morning, Ms. Spain. And speaking of that,
yes, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we'll do this again because we want to see that. I'm selfish. We want all the Senate seats and all the congressional seats.
Exactly.
I'm unapologetically selfish. So whatever we can do to help Dr. Andrews win, and whatever we can do to hold on to ones that we have and gain some, I'm down with that conversation. So thank you for being with us this morning. But redistricting is one of the issues that's impacting that in South Carolina. Let's talk about that from the terrible side of it, and then let's talk about it from the upside of the positive of what we can do to make some change there.
Okay. So the Republicans, like I said, they have a trifecta in South Carolina. So they try to redistrict right before the June primary. And, of course, there are still a few common sense Republicans in South Carolina who tried to make the case that you don't want to wait the sleeping beast with this decision. And when it comes to our congressional maps, it is, the numbers that we see, the maps that we cut, there's not really anywhere else to cut that pie to make it worse, right? Mm-hmm. Any reasonable way to cut that pie to make it worse. Now, Washington can cut it and make it worse, but that doesn't. They don't have the support of the Republicans because they're breaking up communities that they don't want broken up. You're bringing Clemson down to the Midlands, and they don't want that. So we had that. I feel like that worked in our favor a little bit because the map was just so bad, but Election Day, we really did a call, just like a call to action along with the churches, with everybody to show that it was time to show up and show out. And so we just had historic turnout on the first day of early voting. And that was the morning that the final meeting that they were having. And the turnout was so high, I believe that it just scared them off. So we were able to stave them off for now. But they will absolutely be back in January. And that's why it's so important that Democrats break that Republican supermajority in November, because that also sends a message that, Democrats are winning here, and you're going to have Senate seats up. You're going to have, if we break the supermajority in the State House, number one, that gives our members more members and more opportunities to speak up, and it changes the temperature in the room, right? When you've got 35 members and they've got 70, you don't get any respect. But when you get back to just a regular minority, it shows that, okay, well, they've got some numbers. We've got to try to build a coalition. They need less moderate Republicans to come on their side to help stop bad legislation. So that's the first thing. And it just shows that Democrats can win in South Carolina. So I think that us breaking the supermajority sends a major signal. And if we're able to pick up that Nancy LaCour seat before even getting to Annie, like there's so many things that we can do before we have to win statewide that helps us with redistricting. Does that make sense? I'm trying to break it down in reverse.
No, it does, because I think that when the conversation around redistricting, as I see it, and of course, particularly in states where we have a smaller number of House seats, then we lose one. If we got 3 and we lose 1, that's a 30% or a 33% loss in our representative power, and it happens time and time again by design in communities of color, more specifically African American Black communities. Yeah. And so this is where this disenfranchisement has become. It's a national issue, even though it may be happening in a state by state way. How are you addressing that with members of the Black community there in South Carolina to say, we got your back, we're going to fix this? And then along with that, Ms. Spain, let me ask the question with this. Along with this, are people aware that it's happening? And I know that may sound silly, but do you see where I'm coming from?
Oh, yeah, that's the biggest part, awareness. Like what it means, because sometimes, people are just working. They don't understand what we're talking about, right? Like, what does it mean? So, number one, the awareness and the education behind what happens if we don't have a member of Congress, right? If Congressman Clyburn isn't there, not even to mention the member of Congress that we do have, all the influence that he does have, but just a voice, a representative voice. South Carolina, the map is already gerrymandered, right? Because we should have a fair map would have Democrats with 3 congressional seats in South Carolina, not with just 1. So they're already gerrymandered, and we don't have the voice that we should have. But the percentage of Black voters that live in South Carolina, that isn't representative either. And so when you try to take out the only Democratic member and the only Black member, well, now we've got Tim Scott, but that doesn't really count. He's a senator. That doesn't really count. And Black voters don't have a voice.
And not only is that a fair statement, it's an accurate statement.
Yeah, that don't really count. But so number one, the awareness and the education around like having a voice to speak for you, like what it means. These members of Congress, they don't work. They work for you. And I'm always trying to explain that to our voters, that people get elected to serve the people, not the other way around. So if you don't get to send a representative from your community, then your issues aren't being brought to the table, and they won't ever get resolved. So it is an awareness and an education piece that we've really been trying hard to help folks understand. And so just working with the faith community, which is still a big deal in South Carolina, because we've got a huge AME, African American, African Methodist Episcopal community in South Carolina, and they're very political, I feel. So, and they're always great partners. And so just working with these folks to make sure that they are also trying to inform their churchgoers about what's happening. And I think that is helping us move the needle a little bit.
Yeah. How are you navigating the issue of straight ticket voting? I know that that's historically impacted Republican voting or voting for Republicans in the state, but that's some reality that you got to deal with. And so how are you trying to swat those flies away?
Basically, our goal is to make sure that folks understand that they can vote straight ticket. Like, it's okay, because what ends up happening a lot of times, Richard, is when we get about 30 days out from the election, people will tell, I'll hear it on the Black radios, don't vote straight ticket because this is going to happen or that's going to happen. And it's a form of voter suppression that really pisses me off, because the other side is doing it, right?
Yes, they
and
are.
We're telling people not to do it.
Yeah.
So we are pushing that this time in a way that we haven't done in a while, because I'll tell you, in 2024, we had a tremendous undervote with the top of the ticket. 64,000 people in South Carolina went in and voted for Kamala Harris and left. I mean, so of course we lost state house seats, we lost sheriffs, we lost so much. In Charleston County alone, 10,000 people did that.
Wow.
And we lost a Democratic sheriff in Charleston County. So we are really pushing straight ticket voting because right now we don't have the numbers to fight back on it. So we've just got to also use it on our side. So we're pushing it. Complete your ballot. Don't leave any seat unchecked. But of course, just pick straight ticket voting because that's what they're doing and that's how they're winning. So we're really just trying to encourage our voters just to use every tool that's in our toolbox as well. But it is a issue.
Yeah, to end on
an issue. Excuse me.
No, that's all right. As we wrap up, and like I said, we're going to have you back again before we get to the midterm elections because it's important. I have taken the position on that every person in the country has an interest in every other state's elections. And here's the reason why. You just mentioned something about the sheriff. If you're traveling down to South Carolina, visiting from California or from Maine or from wherever, and you got a sheriff that isn't on the up and up and doing the right thing and caring about people, he or she can make your life hell. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yep. They run the county. Yep. So they've got a lot of power.
That's why we have to be, as a nation of folk, we got to be more willing to say, oh, yeah, I'm in Seattle and I'm good. No, if you travel to South Carolina, you want to make sure you're good when you get down here.
You might be less good.
You might be less good. So... Miss Spain, I will say this. My listeners know this, but you may not. My family's originally from the South, and so I reach back to some of my Southernisms every now and again because they matter. So it's been a joy to have you. We've both got big smiles on our faces, and that's a good thing. That's a blessing to have on this Friday morning. How can folks find you?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. It's the first run. We'll do it again. How can folks find you and be involved in what's going on in South Carolina politics?
I am on social media, myself personally, at Crystal Spain. I don't really know what it says, but it's just Crystal Spain, and my name is spelled a little bit different. It's fancy, but it's just Crystal, Chrisstale, in Spain, of course, like the country, Spain. But at the South Carolina Democratic Party, you can find me, and we're all over all channels on social media. Our website is SCD, as in Democratic, P as in party.org. So I'm online. We're online, and we're fighting.
Yes, we are. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us this morning. Have a great weekend, and we'll let you come up to Chicago sometime and enjoy our moderate weather.
Oh yeah, I love it. It's a beautiful city.
Yes,
beautiful.
It is. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. We got the mayor on later in the show, so I'm honored to have him on as a guest today. So, Ms. Spain, thanks for being with us this morning. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye. Before we go to break, hold on. We have one thing I want to do before we go to break. Good morning, Karen Byrne.
Good morning, Richard Chew.
Made you laugh over there, didn't you?
You did. That was fun. I like that.
Yeah, she's great, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. I like her a lot.
She's fantastic. It's good to have that kind of leadership rolling for us in our states. We have to take on that role.
Understands the assignment, it seems.
Without a doubt. We've got to take on that role, though, no matter where we are. If, like I said, if you're down in South Carolina, you want the right sheriff to pull you over.
Yes,
or
indeed.
Right sheriff's deputies to pull you over if you get pulled over or to help you.
That's right.
So she made a great point there. Let's take a quick break, Henry. Sorry about that. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in because when we come back, we will be talking with Professor of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Young Mi Kim. And guess who will be hanging out with me in that conversation? Our good friend Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast. I'm Richard Chew. Stay tuned for more Chew's Views.
Richard Chu's got his eyes on the truth, and you're right where you need to be. This is Chu's Views.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. It is Friday, and lots of great things happen on Friday. A good friend, Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast, is hanging out with us this morning. But the real smart person in the room isn't me, and it's not Karen.
No,
it's
definitely
not
me.
us. It's this wonderful, distinguished professor from the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and that's professor of journalism and mass communication and faculty affiliate of political science, Dr. Young Mi Kim. Good morning, Dr. Kim. And if I botch your name a couple times, it's early, and I'm gonna do my best not to do that. But welcome to Chu's Views.
Thank you for inviting me to the show. Your pronunciation was perfect.
Thank you. I got it right. Good. I practiced a lot. It's good to see you. And I just have to say this. When I was reading some of the information about what you've been doing and the work that you've been doing of late, it's astonishing that more people haven't leaned into this conversation. That's what really struck me. And that's the part where I was like, okay, good. This is what we need to be talking about. And it takes someone that's a professor level to see the necessity here. Talk a little bit about your most recent study and the work that you've been really kind of ahead of the curve on when we were dealing with this concern around voter suppression and digital voter suppression specifically.
Yes. So my study is about targeted digital voter suppression and its effect on actual voter turnout. So it is about the architecture of modern disenfranchisement. I would call it like an algorithmic disenfranchisement. So the study we looked at, the study started based on this, my motivation, puzzling questions. I happened to observe two parallel disturbing patterns. One is that racial gap in voter turnout has grown over time since 2012, and it was historically low in the past elections. And then the second, I bumped into some digital voter suppression as like boycott the election doesn't matter, neither candidates care about us, things like that. So my question was how these two are, whether and how these two are related. So instead of focusing on a persuasion of a campaign effect, let's look at a demobilization, who are not turning out to vote, and then why they are not turning out to vote. What's the role of a targeted digital campaigns? So that is the study about. And then the top line, the result is that first, we observed that we tracked all the digital records, the digital ad exposure directly to about more than 10,000 people representing the U.S. voting age population, and then so-called reverse engineered this ads. Mm-hmm. And then we identified people who are exposed to voter suppression ads and who are never exposed to voter suppression ads, and then track all our 10,000 people's actual turnout record, and then match it, and then compare these two groups. And what we found is that targeted digital voter suppression are not evenly distributed across the country. So non-white voters who are living in the battleground states, where a vote margin typically less than a 5% margin, these people received significantly more voter suppression ads, particularly non-white voters who are living in the racially minority majority counties, so racial minority is more than 50%. So Milwaukee County in Wisconsin or Philadelphia County in Pennsylvania. So these people received nearly 10 times more voter suppression ads than the average population. And then second, more importantly, we found that at the population level, exposure to targeted digital voter suppression actually decreased the turnout by 1.9%. And then this like a turnout decrease was a lot larger when you compare, when we look at the targeted segment of the population, which is non-white voters who are living in a racially minority majority counties in battleground states.
So did you, in doing this, the research, and then getting the results of the research, were you able to determine what types of, I guess, suppression ads or messaging was more effective than others? Were there certain what comes to mind are like keywords, but were there certain keywords or phrases or images that were more effective in certain places than others, even if it were targeting a non-white voter?
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, we had 4 types of different voter suppression ads. One is like a general demobilization, like election boycott, like a boycott the election doesn't matter type. And then this was the most effective. And then second type was coalition breaking. So you target, like for example, you target like the liberal, like a progressive candidates, and then say, like a Democratic candidates are not caring about us. So it's like a breaking the coalition of that voters base. So it's very interesting. So, and then other things like similarly, like a third party candidate, like a promotion, and then like a threat to the voting, things like that. But we found that because when we classified and analyze like the content variations, then statistically the size gets smaller, the statistical power has some problem, but like we found that just based on the patterns, like a general demobilization message was the most powerful.
Did you say demobilization?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
like an election, boycott the election. Election doesn't matter.
Don't
go to the poll. Line is long. Those kind of things.
Because that actually, I'm guessing here, or maybe suppositioning that message being more impactful is one that really kind of crosses any and all communities of voters, is to try to get anybody, whether they be of African American, Asian, Hispanic, Latino, whatever, Muslim communities, and it also will get white voters to think that this isn't going to matter. I don't need to show up, et cetera, et cetera. Because I think about this in relationship to the 2024 general election. If 89 million people didn't vote in the general election, the bulk of those people weren't African American, Asian, Hispanic, Latino, and other communities. There were largely probably white voters in that massive number. Correct?
Yes, probably. But so 2 things. Like one is that I think the reason that that general demobilization was most powerful is because that kind of a message resonates with the people's like a barrier. The people are busy. They are struggling with the multiple things, and then some people are like a part-time job, and then and then they are resentful about politics, and then low level of confidence in institutions. So when then you are bombarded with these messages saying that election doesn't matter, line is long.
Yeah.
So then Yeah. And then, but second thing, regarding like a white voters and this like a racial um, gap. Yes, yes, if you are like a rural voters, who are very resentful about the politics, they might be responsive to this kind of messages.
Hmm.
But there are mobilization messages, mostly about talking about more about posing a threat to their identity. Then it might sort of a canceling out. What we found is a systemic geo-racial targeting. Yes, because we found that the average population level effect of 1.9% decreases. Yes, we could say regardless of race and geography, there is a relatively small but non-negligible impact. But the biggest difference was found between non-white voters who are living in racial majority counties in battleground states, and then their full counterpart, which means white voters who are living in white majority counties in non-battleground states. Their differences were 14%.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a big number. Let's take a quick break, Dr. Kim. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chu. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Chu's Views. All right, guys, welcome back to Chu's Views. I'm Richard Chu. If you are just tuning in, thanks for being with us this morning. We are talking with Professor Youngmi Kim of the University of Wisconsin at Madison, and she's kind of helping us better understand some of the nuance of digital targeting when it comes to voter suppression. And what I'm gathering, Dr. Kim, is that a lot of it is by design, targeting the battleground states and even more specifically folks in certain districts and communities in those battleground states. But let's kind of widen the lens a little bit as it relates to national campaign messaging. Right now, Michigan is in a battle for the U.S. Senate seat. Dr. Syed has just become the Democratic nominee, going up against Mike Rogers. So this is part of our national conversation about how do we better reach voters or more effectively reach voters. And I wonder on a national level, do you think, does the data show you that there is an effort now to get past just the battleground states with voter suppression, but sort of seep into even the, quote, non-battleground states to push down voter activity? Are you seeing any data that shows that?
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course. It's our study is so-called a statistical test. So it is all about a comparison. So a battleground, voters received more voter suppression as than non-battleground states. But that doesn't mean that non-battleground states do not receive any voter suppression messages. Voter suppression ads are everywhere, so that's why this is very concerning. But a more important thing is it is a selective discouragement. So targeted ads, digital campaigns, selectively target particular types of people and then discourage them from voting. So that is the point. Yes. I think why battleground states. Battleground states is important. It's a most relatively compared to non-battleground states, a very competitive elections. And then in modern campaigns, campaigns always think about persuasion, how can we persuade these voters to vote for my candidate. But unfortunately, cumulative research like shows that persuasion campaigns it's just like hard to persuade people for a variety of reasons. Yes. But then, so then like, even like the campaigns moved to like a reinforcement, like, well, let's just mobilize our support base. But in a very competitive elections, that reinforcement-based like a mobilization even doesn't work. Like it's just like not so much effective. So because there's a so slim like a vote margin, now campaigns like focus on a demobilization. Let's break the coalition of the opposition and then just to make them stay home and then not to vote. And then this is, I think, fundamentally anti-democratic. So that's why we have to care more about not just like a get out the vote type of mobilization, but we also have to understand why people staying home, why people they are not turning out to vote, and then carefully examine this like voter suppression messages and the mechanisms, because as within all the debates about voter ID law, gerrymandering, restrictive voting, centralized like a voter data. This is all about who gets to participate.
Yeah.
Yes, and then it is about the control over representation. So we have to, mobilizers have to understand that get out the vote is great, but at the same time, we have to, the fight is not just about mobilization, but about how could we fight against the demobilization.
One of the things that is certainly a part of this, and you can kind of help us through this part of the conversation, is the impact of social media and how sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Algorithmic manipulation takes place, so that message that started off being, for lack of better words, a small, maybe local message, suddenly broadens to become a regional or a national message just based on the algorithm that plays into social media. Talk a little bit about that, Dr. Kim.
Yes, that's an excellent question. It is like a really hard to talk about, empirical evidence of the impact of the social media or, algorithm in general, because this algorithm just, it's a black box. So nobody knows how exactly it works. The reason we are able to identify a voter suppression and able to so-called reverse engineer this algorithm is because I developed this an app named eScope that directly measures exposure to digital ads. And then we also did surveys of our participants, and then we can match this their online exposure patterns, and then online behavior, and then their demographics, and then political leanings, and then some attitudes about issues, and then so political social attitudes, and then their voting behavior, voting history.
Right.
We are able to do that because we developed this app, and then I was very fortunate, I'd say, but unless we have this kind of data, it is really hard to talk about the impact. What we could infer based on our data is that a lot of people say algorithm messages are boosted because users share them. That's true. So we should be very careful when we share some messages, whether this is accurate and who's gonna benefit the most, from these messages. But what we found is because campaigns or advertisers or whoever distributing these messages have now have a very convenient tool to target certain types of very narrow sets of the population. And with the AI, it's even more, effective. You can create, like, you can simulate, like, okay, this is like a kind of people like I want to reach out to. And then like, AI can like run, like develop, like, targeting, so-called like a targeting model, and then customize messages, and then just like then like this like the ad sponsors or like a message distributors can just distribute the messages at scale in a minute. So yes, so it is, yeah, technology. The role of this like a targeted tool, like an algorithm, is really important, and we should be more aware
Right.
of the role of like an algorithm, things like that. So
it's fascinating, and I know that there's so much more to talk about with regard to digital voter suppression, the algorithms, and how they accelerate that work, if you will. But as always, it's great to have someone like you who spends their time, working us through these items. Dr. Kim, it's been great having you with us this morning. Real quickly, how can folks follow you if they choose to kind of plug in more to the work that you're doing and the reports and studies that you've put together?
yes, like, well, we'll see. Like, I'm like available like for any questions, and always like just look for like a social media or a website, and then see like I will keep posting what's going on.
Absolutely.
Research team.
Dr. Youngmi Kim, professor at the University of Madison, Wisconsin. It's great to have you with us and to get our brains working this morning in this space. Have a great weekend. Thanks for taking the time to hang out with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Bye now. All right, guys, quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chu. Stay plugged in. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Chu's Views. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to Chu's Views on this wonderful August 7th, 2026. Riding with my road dog, Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast. And that music means that we will be talking with one and only mayor of the great city of Chicago, Brandon Johnson. Good morning, Mayor Johnson.
Hey, good morning, Richard. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to dive into the deep end of the pool this morning because I know you got a busy schedule. Talk to us about the state of Chicago. How are we doing? What's the good, the bad, and the ugly, as the old movie referenced?
Yeah, well, I'll definitely start with the good. And, even with good, there are still challenges within it. But Richard, as you know, my goal is to continue to work to build the safest, most affordable big city in America. And, last summer we saw record lows in crime and violence. Many speculated that we would not be able to maintain that momentum and continue to push forward. Well, just July, we just experienced yet another low in homicides. July just saw the fewest number of homicides in our city since 1963. And, homicides are down, and shootings are down, and robberies are down. This is all, again, compared to what we saw just last year, where we had the fewest amount of homicides in 60 years. Look, one act of violence is one too many. And I know those who have experienced violence in this city, do not relate to those trends. So that's why I'm working hard every single day. Our economy, of course, continues to develop. You may have seen that the Magnificent Mile is certainly back to where it was before the pandemic, and continues to grow day by day. So when it comes to our economy, it continues to grow, and when it comes to safety and violence, that continues to go down.
So you and three cities, Chicago, Baltimore, and New York, have a similar story when it comes to reduction in violence and violent crimes. So obviously, kudos to you and the other Brandon in Baltimore and Mayor Mandami for doing the thing that you said you were going to do. But it was going to take some time, and it's going to take time to keep driving those numbers down to a point where people can feel it. So I merged that with a national conversation, Mayor Johnson, around feeling the effects of good financial policy. Some people in Chicago, you know this, you hear it all the time, so this is not new, say they don't feel, quote, safe, or they don't feel like the economy in the city of Chicago is working for them. How do you navigate that? Because you know as well as I do, if not better than most, that what people feel is what they act on sometimes versus what the reality may be. That's a data point. Does that make sense?
It does. And I absolutely understand, why, too many people in our city still don't feel the impact of, the transformation. And part of it is, Richard, is, safety is not just the absence of violence. It's the presence of affordable housing, the presence of a fully funded school, the presence of a good paying job, right? These are still areas of and circumstances that we are still confronting. Now, look, I don't claim to have all of the answers. What I have made clear is that we have to make the case for how we move forward. And what we have seen in the past, Richard, is we've seen school closures. We've seen, the negligence as it relates to paying into our pensions. We saw a time in which, though there were more police officers, there wasn't a commitment to community safety as well as community policing in particular. And so that's why part of this work really entails ensuring that we're raising the wages of workers, right? We are finding ways in which we can continue to fund the critical services that people rely upon. And the way I believe that we have to do that is by taxing the rich. I'll just kind of put a fine point on this, is that the bulk of the balance of how we maintain our economy still rests on the backs of working people. And that has to change. Now, I put forth a budget that would challenge big corporations and the ultra rich to put a little bit more skin in the game. We're not saying that we're trying to bankrupt them. We're saying that we have to have a balanced and a fair, equitable tax structure. I'm grateful that there is more movement in Springfield to do that. But once there is a real absolute commitment to partnership at every level of government to ensure that we're providing the presence of opportunities in these communities, you'll begin to see the shift, and not just in the paradigm, but in how people are actually experiencing government.
Yeah, and I think that's key to make that distinction, not just in the data and the feeling have got to come together. I guess to use my words. You tried something that got shot down by the alders, and a lot of people nationally said that excluded the voters, and that was the referendum on the millionaire's tax. Let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, work us through that and what it means for it not to have been put in the laps of the voters of the city of Chicago to kind of have not a say necessarily, but just a recognition that they have some thoughts about it, if that makes any sense.
It does. And we've heard repeatedly, and I've heard all over the city of Chicago, that there's overwhelming support for a millionaire's tax. And it's well past time Democrats actually step up, stand up, and lead in this moment. And it goes back to your previous question. This is how you close the gap between what people are experiencing and how they're relating to this transformation that's happening in our city. And it was a disappointment for, alders who are tied to the interests of corporations that would much rather stall progress than be a part of the progress that, quite frankly, is inevitable. We're going to win this, Richard. We're going to win this battle. We have seen time and time again when opposition rises up against the will of the people united will always prevail. And to that point, as much as there is disappointment that we've had aldermen not just block, attacks on big corporations, not just, blocking how we, protect renters in this city, where over half of the people of the city of Chicago are renters, for them to block and stand in the way of the voice of the people as it relates to this millionaire's tax and other forms of progressive revenue. Of course, it's incomprehensible and it's reprehensible. But the good news is my former colleagues on the county board did pass a resolution to ensure that Cook County, which obviously the city of Chicago is the largest city within the county of Cook, will be able to answer that question. Should the state of Illinois place a 3% surcharge on millionaires to fund our public schools and to provide property tax relief? So and I'm grateful to Cook County Commissioner Donna Miller, the Democratic nominee for the 2nd Congressional District. And again, because of the collaborative approach in the organizing, even though city council members who are tied to corporate interests try to block us, our movement obviously extends well beyond the walls of City Hall. And thank God for that.
Without a doubt. Mayor Johnson, we all know that there's always the elephant in the room, the thing that people tap dance around and so forth. And that is really two things that you've really leaned into, the other you're leaning into. First one being the teen takeovers, which is it's a national phenomenon. It's not just happening here in Chicago. It's happening all over the country, first of all. But secondly, staff resignations. How are you navigating that? How are you making that better or less worse, if you will?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, as it relates to, these takeovers and these large gatherings by young people, what we've done is we've mobilized the full force of government, and we've been working intentionally with Chicago Police Department as well as CVI, the Community Violence Intervention Workers, to prevent these gatherings from happening and to mitigate the full impact that these gatherings have had. One of the ways in which we've done it, we've made sure that there are more opportunities for young people. It's not just about accountability. As I said, arrests are made, people are fined, right? But that's not enough, Richard. We saw more people go to jail in the 90s and more people were being murdered in the 90s, right? Mm-hmm. So there's no direct correlation between incarceration, arrests, and reducing violence. We lived through that already. And as much as we will continue to hold people accountable, what I've said, let's give more opportunities. This summer, we're going to break last year's record. Over 32,000 young people with summer jobs. We are hiring young people to activate safe spaces for young people to gather, right? And then I'm grateful to the Mael Foundation that worked with the YMCA, where over 2,000 young people had free YMCA memberships throughout the city of Chicago. And there's been some reduction. There's still more work to be done, but by no stretch of the imagination are we giving up on our young people. And as far as staff resignations, I mean, Superintendent Snelling gets to retire.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you tell a grown man after 30 years that he can't retire and that he has to base his retirement on a political calendar?
Yeah.
Annette Guzman, she's going to go care for her mother. I have an 83-year-old father who's almost 84 who is, suffering from Alzheimer's. And, one of the things they don't prepare you for, Richard, is aging parents, right? Yeah. And as
I've
far
been
as
there
our
4 times, so I get it.
You understand what I'm saying? And as far as our CFO, she took a job at Navy Pier, right? I mean, like, these aren't people who are like running away in mass exodus. What I can tell you is that I have the vision to build the safest, most affordable big city in America. And I will hire people who can carry out that vision. It would be different if the work stopped suddenly.
Right.
Right. And as long as I, carry that vision and there are individuals who are prepared to execute that vision, it's that stability that I provide. And so, look, I'm not trying to be dismissive of it.
Not at all.
But if you go back and look at previous administrations and the transitions that they've had, I don't know why folks have decided to cover my transitions more than other administrations. I'm just simply saying that people resign from city government all the time. In fact, Annette Guzman used to work for the city of Chicago and then left to work for the county of Cook, where I met her, and came back.
Yep.
Right to the city of Chicago.
It's always the backstory that people don't want to talk about. They don't want to really kind of look and see, okay, this is not the end of the world. And and more importantly, it's a reality that happens in the world. People make changes make the decision to do something different. And I think that, that to your point, sometimes folks have just got to recognize that folks are going to leave, and they should. And congrats to former Commissioner Superintendent Snelling to go forward that way. So, Mayor Johnson, let us take a little bit of a break. When we come back, I want to talk about something that is on people's mind, and it might surprise you the way that I position it to you. But the number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more Chew's Views and Mayor Brandon Johnson, the great city of Chicago. All right, guys, welcome back to Chew's Views. If you're just tuning in, I'm Richard Chew, hanging out with my good friend Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast and Chicago's very own Mayor Brandon Johnson. Mayor Johnson, Karen has a question for you that I think our listeners will want to hear. Karen.
Hello, Mayor. Listen, now, Richard was addressing the elephant in the room, but I want to address the big orange stanky elephant in the room. And I would like to know, how is it, and, why isn't it ever, presented when we're talking about budget challenges and where the money is coming from? Clearly, the big orange, fat, stanky elephant in the room has been announcing that he is going to punish his political opponents or, critics. So how are you navigating that, withholding of federal dollars and trying to figure out how we pay for things?
Yeah, well, thank you for holding back a little bit there on how you really feel, Karen.
Okay.
I know this is a morning PG-13 show. It has been tough for governments around the country, especially blue cities and blue states. You're absolutely right, Karen. The president has made it clear that he is going to take his animus and his animus out on working people. Never in a million years that I would have imagined that I would have to defend our city against federal attacks. One of the things that we did do was we passed the first of its kind, the social media amusement responsibility tax. It's a tax on big tech companies that's going to generate millions of dollars that's going to go directly towards mental and behavioral health care. We've actually earmarked it because I believe it's important that taxpayers know exactly where their dollars are going. And as we look to expand mental and behavioral health care, I don't want a situation where, like what we're experiencing now, that public mental health is at the whims of a tyrant. And we've found creative ways with green social housing, the largest city in America to actually move on an effort where, through my $1.25 billion economic development bond, $135 million was put into this green social housing apparatus to create a revolving loan to continue to build sustainable, affordable housing that is centered around green technology, right? So that not just rent is stabilized, but utility cost as well. The bottom line is this. It has been a challenge, right? The state of Illinois, the governor had to close a $2 billion budget deficit. President Preckwinkle, I believe hers is around $600 million, something like that. Ours is nearly $1 billion, if not just a little bit more, because of the federal attack against cities. So we're finding creative ways to continue to build in our mission to build safe and affordable communities. But make no mistake about it, this has been incredibly difficult for working people. The largest upward transfer of wealth in the history of America into the hands of the ultra rich at the expense of education, healthcare, housing, transportation, and good paying jobs. And we're going to continue to fight. I'm going to use every tool available to me to protect working people. And that's why I'm counting on Springfield to do their part at this moment, calling for a millionaire's tax so that we can fund these critical services.
And that leads to me to, thanks, Karen. That leads to me to this question regarding Springfield, Mayor Johnson, the $150 million CPS funding ask and Springfield's, hopeful partnership in that. Walk us through how you are dealing with and navigating that one.
Yeah, well, as you know, I've talked about this before. I've used our PIFs to essentially bail out Springfield, right? I mean, over the last 3 budgets, I've released over $1 billion into our schools. And look, Richard, I was happy to do it. Like it wasn't even sweat off my back, right? Because funding our public schools as a former public school teacher, as the beneficiary of public education, all 3 of my children, my wife, like we are public, education through and through. So much so, I mentioned this last week. I dropped my oldest off to Eastern Illinois, and you've been through this. You know how
I saw those tears welling up, Mayor Johnson.
Yes,
I did.
Yeah,
we felt it. We felt it. We felt that you felt it in your chest.
Absolutely. And we have great public state institutions. They have to be fully funded. It's not just K through 12. It's our universities, our community colleges as well. So I'm going to continue to advocate to fully fund our schools. I just met with 4 legislators yesterday. I'm meeting with some this morning. I had a meeting with the speaker. I have a meeting with the Senate president. We're having these conversations earlier and far more often. And look, New York funds their public schools. The state does at around 45%. Same thing with Pennsylvania. Los Angeles and San Francisco, the state of California funds those school districts at about 70%. The state of Illinois funds our school districts at 25%. Look, though we have certainly improved, but we should not be doing the bare minimum, particularly at a time in which, as you said earlier at the top of this conversation, is that people are not feeling it. And they're not feeling it because we're not doing enough to make sure that maximum impact is being received. But the people of Chicago have an advocate and an organizer and a leader who is prepared to continue to work with Springfield to ensure that the ultra-rich pay their fair share in taxes and that our public institutions are fully funded.
And I think that more people, from what I'm hearing, this is, if we go back 2 years, if we go back a year, or if we go back the 3 years that you've been in office, people were skeptical in some ways. And I think that's because you weren't tested yet as a mayor. You were tested in other ways, but you have been tested. And the thing that I hear from people outside of Chicago, whether it be on social media or in other forms of connection, is that people want people that are going to fight. Mayor Mamdani is a fighter. Mayor Brandon Scott in Baltimore, he's a fighter. Senate candidate in Michigan, Dr. Syed, he's a fighter. And the other side that hasn't been used to fighters, they're not used to that. They're not used to a mayor standing in front of a press conference and pushing back real time. And that has got a lot of people kind of off their square. And you keep coming back to kind of sadistically fight for more. So, I think you are answering the bell, and that skepticism in some corners is still there, but in others it's going down because as you said, the polls matter, but what matters is delivering on the goods.
Yeah, that is what matters the most. And I want to give a shout out to Justin Pearson.
Oh yeah, thank you.
In Memphis, that just happened just like a few hours ago, just late last night, is another good example of a fighter. Someone who is removed from his state representative seat, fought to get it back, the redistricting down there in a Democratic district that was a strong Democratic district, with the Memphis being a big portion of that congressional district. The Republicans split it up, and he ran against establishment there, and he's been a fighter, 31 years old. And yes, Al Saeed, these are great examples around the country of how women and people of color are standing up in this moment. And look, we're not fighting just for the sake of fighting, right? We're really defending our values, but we're tired of the old way, right? You have politicians that are still calling for 1,000 more cops and to close schools, right?
Here's some math on that, Mayor Johnson. I have this right in front of me. That would cost somewhere between 140 and $200 million. So let's do the average, $170 million. Wow, what would $170 million do to transform large-scale municipal projects throughout the country, not just here in Chicago? I just had to throw that in. Sorry.
No, well, thank you. No need to apologize. Look, I've made over $2 billion of investments on the west side of Chicago, $2.6 billion on the south side of Chicago, building a hospital, building affordable homes, investing in our small businesses, developing our economic corridors, raising the wages of workers. Like if we stick at it, we've already seen more people visit our city than any other time. We're going to break that record again this year. It's the top destination for college graduates, the only major city that experienced population growth. Small, but we didn't lose population. We didn't stay stagnant. We actually grew. And so as our economy continues to grow and as more people come to visit our city, it's only right that we challenge those with means to pay their fair share in taxes. Look, Richard, I've shared my own personal story. If you don't know what it's like to come home, man, and there's no food in the refrigerator, or your lights are not on, the water's not on, or you watch your father who was struggling every day to work and make the ends meet. I didn't know much about who Ronald Reagan was in the 80s. I was too young, but I was old enough to know that he was problematic, right? And because his attacks on labor, his attacks on working people, it was a privilege for me to have $5 to get an inhaler. Yeah. Because that's what my dad's job meant. It meant having health insurance so that I could breathe, right? And you have families in this city and across this country who are struggling to make the ends meet. I was just up in Rogers Park yesterday meeting with families, a dad of two, he and his wife working hard every day, 2-bedroom apartment for $1,800 a month. By the time they pay their rent, they have very little left to get school supplies, right? These are the struggles that people are experiencing right now. And you have politicians messing around and playing around with the lives of people. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to tolerate it. And it's good to know that there are fighters across this country who are doing the same.
Without doubt, Mayor Johnson, thanks for being with us this morning. As always, it's great to chat with you and to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we appreciate you taking some time out this morning. We will have you back again soon, and we wish you a good, great weekend and all the rest, okay?
Very well. Thank you very much. Look forward to coming back.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I love him. I really do.
Yeah. Listen, I'm going to favor any leader that's doing what he or she can do to make things happen.
He understands it. I mean, just talking about that family, and, after they pay their rent, they barely, you're scrambling to figure. I know what that was like in my 20s. It was like I was, living paycheck to paycheck. And it was, I remember that. That is a very real feeling for so many people.
And when you have a family, it's even more stressful. When he talked about the hiring the 1,000 police officers, that's from someone that's announced their candidacy. I'm not going to drop any names today because I'm working hard to not do that to the show. But I did the math on that real quickly because I heard that and I was like, that's insane. Mm-hmm. That would cost the city $175 million. Better place that money toward programs that are going to help everybody's
that are going to serve the people, truly serve the people.
Yeah. We got to get out of here, Karen, but thanks for hanging out this morning.
Listen, check out our podcast, please. On Sunday, it drops for our Patreons, and then on Monday for everybody else. But we were able to interview, thanks to you, Richard, Ashley Bell, one of my family members, North Carolina 10. And it was an amazing conversation. I really love her. I'm excited for her.
Fantastic. Good stuff. All right, guys, thanks for being with us all week. We got to get out of here. Stay tuned for the Stephanie Miller Show. Take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you next week.